What is up, everybody? Hello, how are you? This is Behind the Badge once again. It is I, Real Prince Blue, with my man Jay Step, and we're gonna talk about something that has been, I don't want to say controversial, but you always hear it when police brutality start, or people say, it's it's systematic, police brutality, blah 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 blah. The one thing that comes up is, well, if we had more good cop policing the bad cops, then we wouldn't have these issues. And that's a great point, because we spoke with somebody that's still active within the police department, and other officers as well have reached out, and it's something that now it's not even they're having an issue with. It's not an issue of policing their own, but it's an issue of what is the difference between policing your own and quote unquote being a tattletale, or being a rat among your brothers and sisters. And we're going to talk about that, and me and Step, we're going to give you um some tips and some guidelines to officers out there, and also let the community know how it's not as simple as um, policing your own. First of all, I want to start off with saying what's up to my homie Step. What's going on, Jay?
Doing that thing, baby. Like always. Been trying to outfit my new uh, Sprinter van. Hadn't named it yet. I'm trying to come up with a name. Maybe somebody could come up with a cool name. Thought
How
about it.
about go ahead?
No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, coming up with a name. How about Cha-Ching?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Oh yeah. I wish. That was my cha-ching. I don't have any cha-ching anymore. I just bought the Sprinter van.
For those who don't know, man, me and Step had to we had to take pictures for the cover art of our podcast, and how we're gonna uh
Did the Knicks lose?
no, what is going on, the next loose? um my wife said we're not live. Are we live? um uh-oh, something is going on. Yeah, we're live, so I don't know what she's talking about. Anyway, um I don't know. Oh, I think she's saying we're not live on Facebook. Uh-oh. Hold on. Technical difficulties once again. Nope, we're not live on Facebook. Hold on. Boom. Boom. Here it is. Let's see now. I think we should be live now. I don't know what happened, everybody, but wires were crossed, but we're here. We're live again. So let's do this over again, and then we'll edit later on. But everybody, this is real time. This is not real time pitch blue. This is behind the badge with Blue and Step, and we're going to talk about an issue that's been going on and that people want to discuss, and that's about the good cops policing the quote unquote bad cops. And we're going to tell you how it's not as easy as it seems, and the newer generation of cops that's coming in, they're not understanding the difference, and we're going to explain what the difference is to the community, and how um, police can go forward with policing their own without alienating each other, and destroying the fraternity, which is the police. So, Jay, let's get right into it. Tell me, what's your difference? What's the difference between policing your own and being a quote unquote tattletale? What's the difference to you?
So to me, what the officers would have an obligation to report is anything illegal, against policy, maybe unethical. But what we're seeing is, especially this new generation of cops, that they're going to supervisors saying, "Hey, Prince didn't take his fair share of calls. I had a report and he didn't take the next one," or it's just the same stuff. And I'll give you an example of the mentality. When I was a patrol sergeant, I asked a new rookie officer to take a ride along. Citizens, were allowed to ride along to see the daily activities of cops. And she was the low man on the totem pole. And I was like, "Hey, you have to, we take this ride along today." And the officer was like, "I took the last one." And I'm like, "Well, everybody in this room's had 25 before you even got here, so you're going to take this one." So it's just that sense of entitlement. And then, I would constantly have officers come up to me and complain that, not about legit stuff, not about somebody doing something illegal, unethical, using excessive force, nothing like that. It would be because, I think almost all of us would report something like that. This was just, so-and-so left a cracker wrapper in the car, or so-and-so did, he was on numbers for too long, or I'm like, deal with it. And I don't know if it's a generational thing, but as well as me, the senior officer was kind of the mediator in the shift. Or you went to the guy and be on the call, "Hey, do me a favor, don't leave shit in the damn car anymore." And I don't, but there's been several officers come to me say the same thing, that and normally what I found are the officers who are trying to complain about nitpicky stuff are the ones trying to deflect because they're not doing anything.
Mm-hmm. And mine is sort of on the same wavelength, George, but I just always go back to, we're grown men, we're grown women. If you have a problem with me, step to me. If I have a problem with you, I'm going to step to you. Like, I don't get this whole running to the supervisor or telling stuff. Now, granted, again, if it's like, "Hey, Blue punched that guy too many times," I get that. I get something like that, because that's something that is detrimental to everybody. If you try to sweep that and let that go, you have to say what you saw, and you have to be able to police your own, as you say. But if it's something such as, "Hey, Blue was on meal for 45 minutes and I didn't get a chance to eat," bullshit like that, that's let me tell you something, and you can attest to this, Step, as the supervisor. We're going to take what you say, but what are you going to really be thinking about an officer that comes to you with something like that?
There are a couple things. One, take care of your own shit, dude. So just think, we're dealing with the worst of the worst people in domestics and stuff. We're telling them what to do and calling them out. Why can't we call each other out? Don't be an asshole about it. But it's the point where it's generational, man. I don't know what it is, but it's like, "Hey, let's tell, teacher, this, he just spit a spitball at me or something. It's just like, all right, a good supervisor is going to know who's working and who's not. So a lot of times it's perception. Somebody's on numbers too long, and I'm like, "Well, yeah, because I'm having them do an extra follow up. I told them to stay on numbers." But,
right, you don't know what's going on. That's why
yeah,
you should
mind
confront
your
that
own business.
officer
Yeah,
and ask them.
take your calls. Don't worry about anybody else. If they're slack, call them out, or go to the senior officer and call them out at roll call. A lot of, if somebody's being lazy, we had a couple officers in Eastway who weren't scared. They'll say something in roll call to kind of embarrass them.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
old school.
didn't have a problem. Yeah, but because call their ass out. Be like, "Yeah, Prince, I noticed you were on lunch for an hour and a half yesterday. How did that work out for you?" or something. And
Yeah.
but you don't, and people will start, it's like a high school, So, but call them out that way. It kind of embarrasses them. It makes everybody else aware of what they're doing, and normally something like that fixes it.
But Now let's get to the meat of the issue, and that's what the noise from the outside is now affecting the ranks within the inside. Because now you got some good officers that that are doing good work, and behind the scenes is being cases, or they're being looked at for something that if that officer that went to snitch, or quote unquote let the supervisor know, would have approached them. Let's say if that, like you said, that officer was on lunch, for was on numbers for a while based on something that you told them to do. Now they don't start a call. Now administration is looking at all that officer's calls, and it's just unnecessary stress. It's
Yeah.
taking resources away. It's putting stress on that officer because now he got eyes on him, and now nobody knows who to trust. And they're like, okay, we got a rat inside within the ranks, and now how do I know? If you said it already, it's a brotherhood, it's a sister, it's a fraternity. I might have said to you something about going on at home. How do I know you're not going to supervise? Like, yeah, I think the reason why Blue is staying on numbers a lot because he's depressed about what's going on at home. How do you know I want anybody else to know about what's going on?
Yeah. There was an incident, kind of what we're talking about, of an officer who was, you know, back in the day, not even too long, you check out to go to the bathroom, right? You signal 12. So signal means, hey, I'm going to the bathroom. So, or hey, show me how to service computer, right? Instead of just logging on an hour and a half late, they would tell headquarters to log them on. That's what we did. And now, so this particular officer, who's a good officer, I worked with them for years. I trust them, and that's what's happening to them is they're having these newer officers go to the sergeants, who in this case the sergeants aren't very squared away, complaining, and the sergeants are taking the word of the tattletales and then looking for stuff to jam the officer up for when it's not deserved. Uh, so instead of a good supervisor is going to know what people are doing. So people, hey, so and so's been out for 2 hours. That's fine. I know what he's doing. Or because somebody will call me, hey, Sarge, I didn't need to run by the house. I left my cell phone or something, or I don't know. And I'm like, yeah, go ahead, just stay on numbers, go get it. Don't. And I tell people, don't worry what everyone else is doing. Don't worry about who took the last call and it's your turn. Just take care of business. If it becomes a problem, I'll deal with it. I don't need you telling me that someone's on numbers. I know who's on numbers. I know who's on calls. I know what's going on.
A good sergeant is a good sergeant, a good supervisor knows what's going on. Like, I've heard plenty of times where I've been out where it seemed like there's no units available, and that sergeant's like, yeah, nah, 61220 is about to clear, because he knows, hey, 61220's been on
Yeah,
a noise complaint for about 50 minutes. Like, no,
yeah.
61220 is about to clear to take that.
And so,
That you got ways to let the shift know that I'm listening. I see what's going on. I know what's going on.
this happens everywhere at every department. So you get a call, you get a 1050 PD only and a property damage only in a parking lot. Well, it's like, what would we do? We would go there. Hey, we don't want to report. We just want some complaint numbers. You give them a complaint number, do an MI 10-8, 5 minutes. Well, would clear, headquarters clear, give me the next call. Well, a lot of these people now, they're like, I've got 45 minutes to milk this before anybody realizes I'm not doing anything, right? Because that's about the time it takes to do a report. So they're seeing those numbers. And my pet peeve was always would piss me off. I'd call people out on the radio. My pet peeve was if something's happened, like a legit call, like a shooting, something where we need multiple officers or officer needs help or a foot chase, if you don't drop what you're freaking doing, you're not on a domestic or something, but if I don't care what kind of paperwork, you drop what you're doing, you go assist that officer. And if you don't run 1018 to go help that officer who needs help, or they go trying to get to the priority 180W where the woman's getting her ass beat, that's going to piss me off. I don't know how many times I would leave the office and beat the officers there to the call. And that would, the officers would be dispatched to the call to armed robbery, shots fired, one shot, and I'm running traffic, passing officers and route the call, stop at stoplights. I'd call them out. I'd be like, officer, in 212, this is a priority one call. You could run traffic, and that's what you have to do. You call them out, kind of embarrass them a little bit. People, make fun of them and stuff. Yeah, your sergeant called you out, but you could do that as an officer. And that should be taken care of the first line of supervision, and not it was nitpicky. And when officers would come and start complaining about stupid shit, and most of the time those officers were the one. I'm like, okay, you're in here for 20 minutes bitching about this officer not doing anything. You just wasted 20 minutes. We got calls going out.
And that's absolutely you. That's so you to be like, okay, but you've been bitching for about 25 minutes now. So should I write you up, or how should we proceed? But this is my thing. Good officers, good troops, good tight units are not afraid to bust each other's quote unquote balls, or to let each other know, hey, you're fucking up. Like, I can tell this story. There was a domestic where the guy kept coming by, knocking on the door, being in the back, and hurting the stalking the female pretty much. And by the time we would get there, he would leave. Of course, we could just sit there, but with so many calls and stuff going on, it's hard to delegate resources to that. So me and this other officer, we sat there for a good chunk of change while another officer went to go try to get warrants or things of that nature to or a restraining order. So we went away, and it was about 10 minutes. Then we get a call that says, hey, the boyfriend is back. He just beat up the female, blah, blah, blah. We run 1018 traffic. We get there. We got everything, the paperwork, everything we got in hand. And I kid you not, that I'm coming into the house and I see her. She's like getting serviced by medics. Her eye is so closed. She has a bloody lip. She looks so bad. And meanwhile, the officers are struggling to put him in cuffs. I kid you not. I walk past everybody. I pushed him out the way. I lift him up, and behind him was like a coat hanger. I lift him up, and I'm literally like shaking him, like, why did you come back? Why did you come back? You think this game? Why did you do that to her? And I kid you not, the officers, they grab me. They're like, blue, blue, blue. We got him. We got him. We got him. It's good. I kid you not. He's literally hanging on the coat hanger. Now, I'm telling you, if they wouldn't have stepped in and told me they got him or pulled me away, I probably would have hurt him. But you know what? When it was all said and done, I thanked those officers. I was like, hey, they was like, Blue, I hope you're not upset with me. I was like, hell no, I'm not upset with you. You saved my job. You saved his ass. I mean, that's what good officers do. When an officer, your fellow officers, at their breaking point, and they're probably about to do something that they're going to regret for the rest of their career. So you step in. There's no time for hurt feelings when it comes to people's rights, bad perception, and police brutality. So I'm thankful for them for doing that, and that's what good officers do. You police each other, you help each other, you back each other, and that's the difference between that and running to a supervisor and telling them, hey, Blue is still at the 7-Eleven. I don't know what he's doing. Like, we got bigger fish to fry out here.
Absolutely. And even like in East Way, I was on the street crimes unit. I was over the street crimes unit for 6-7 years as a sergeant. But so you'd be surprised.
You had hair then, right?
A little bit. It grew just like I just grew like a rat tail in the back. But you work together. These guys work together for years, and there's been times where they'll call each other out. They go in our bullpens, and it gets heated, and you have to let them. That's what you have to do. If something pisses you off, tell the guy. And then you got a bunch of type A personalities, and it gets pretty heated. Sometimes just it looks like it's going to come to blows, and you got to step in. But And then what? We go to a call, we do a takedown, we do a search warrant, and
Hucky dory.
all those guys would die for anybody else on their unit. So
Absolutely.
it's like a family. You got all kinds of drama in the family. You fuss, you fight with your
But at the end
brother.
of the day,
At the end of
you're
the
there
day,
for
they're
each other.
family, and we can say stuff to each other that no one else better say. But they wouldn't come to me. They would take care. I'll let them. If they would come to me, I'm like, well, take it up with so and so. We'll talk about it in roll call. We'll bring it up. We'll call each other out. If I fuck up, tell me. If you don't like something I did, and they would, they'll tell me, and would work it out. But that's what you have to do. You don't go to the supervisor and tattletale.
Absolutely. Michelle Martin sent in a question. She says, "Why do officers choose what calls they go on?" Um, I will answer that, Michelle. Then I'll let Jay step in. When it comes to calls, when I was an officer, I got the calls. I will always say, either send me where you need me, or I would say send me that call that's in queue. Like, I never requested, hey, send me that noise complaint unless it's the only noise complaint in the queue. And then I used to hate when things were in queue, so I would say, hey, send me that. You do have some officer that cherry pick calls, but that's where step as a supervisor, you could step in here and you would say, no, how about you go to that ADW report that's been sitting.
Yeah, and that's what they would do. So two ways to get calls. One, some comes up and the dispatcher dispatches you. Most of the time in Charlotte, especially now, the officers log on and there's calls in queue. When they get off, there's calls in queue. I think probably 15 or 20 calls is average that officers go to in a shift. So the dispatcher said, hey, 6025, take this DV I got pending, and you go. So if the priority ones are like code 3s in some places, they're the priorities. As soon as they get them, they pop up and people go. But my pet peeve, like Blue brought up, is there'd be a rape report. A nun was raped in a city bus with 27 witnesses, and then there would be a noise complaint, and that response area officer would be like, headquarters, give me that found property call, and you'd be like, negative, that could wait. Or there's ADW, like you said, it happens. You think cops want to go to the hot calls? We got a robbery in progress, and we'll go into that. And then some officers, headquarters, give me that 1050, which is a wreck in a parking lot with no injuries. Like, negative, go to that. No, go to that robbery. If we don't need you, you could go take that wreck. But that's how they try to cherry pick, get out of report calls. If there's a bad report in queue, just depending, sometimes I'll be like, fuck, I'll take it. But other times I'm like, I don't see it. There's that. Hopefully they'll give it to somebody, or if I get it, I get it. But you're not answering up for it. But if there's a good report call, that's not in Charlotte anywhere. If there's a good report call or something going, and some officer chimes up with those calls in queue and chooses to take a bullshit call, that's when that doesn't happen that many times, because the officers and the supervisor would get on their ass. It should. That's the way it should happen.
And hi, and Step asks, is that a training issue? The cherry picking calls is not a. I will say it's split, because if you're with the wrong PTO who says, hey, pick the easiest calls, or pick the calls that you can handle, then yeah, that's a training issue, because then that officer is telling you that he's training you to do the wrong thing. But it's also about that officer himself, because it got to be inside you to be like, nah, I'm going to go to this rape call because maybe that suspect is still on scene. Maybe that's something that could get resolved right now. Imagine you being a rape victim and you're waiting to give a report, and you're waiting, or you're in the hospital, you're waiting, and you got somebody on a found property call, instead of going to a the possibly assist you in your rape call. So it's a training issue, and it's also um it's a moral issue with that officer, because you got to know when you got to have that compass to be like, hey, yeah, this found property call can wait. Who cares? Like, let me go give this hopefully give this rape victim some closure.
And the patrol sergeant should constantly be listening to the radio and know what's going on. If the captain calls me, I want to know. I'm always looking at the queue. Hey, yeah, I know what's going on. I know you have to know. You almost like have to be like a dispatcher. There's not just you have to know where all your people are at. You have to know what's going on, and 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 fix stuff before there's an issue.
So let me ask you this, Step. How when the community wants us to police our own, I want the community to know that the largest number of complaints is officer against officer.
Mm-hmm.
That is a very incorrect narrative that's going around, is that officers don't police their own. We do. We bring up complaints against each other. They're investigated, and depending on the rank of the person that the report is on, or who they know, how these departments go. Let me tell you something. Not all IA departments are created equal.
Mm.
Not all complaints are created equal. You never know. Like, you could be reporting on an officer that went to the academy with the sergeant or the major or whatever, and feelings and business mix, and you may have an uphill climb with your complaint, or nothing may ever come of it. So that's just the nature of the beast. Officers complain on officers all the time, and it's it's out of our hands. We can only make the complaint and then hope that the people that are put in those positions to hear those complaints and investigate them are doing it thoroughly.
Yeah,
Am I right, Steph?
no, you're right. So uh, the problem I've had a lot of times is a lot. This is my opinion. People don't realize, like you said, you go to IA, they're trying to hammer you up a lot of the time. Sometimes, so especially you have to be a sergeant in Charlotte to be an IA investigator, right? So not all places, but in Charlotte, they got a group of sergeants who work IA. So they get IA complaint, they call you up. I found the investigators who were detectives and investigators prior to getting promoted to sergeant and taking an IA position, they tried to prove the allegation instead of fact find. If I get a complaint, I'm trying to fact find. If an officer complains on another officer, or a civilian complains on one of my officers, I don't automatically assume that I talked to a civilian and he said the officer flipped him off and ran his car off the road, right? But the problem is there's too many supervisor or other officers. Well, shit, they're like, Blue just flipped the car off and tried to run the car off the road, and then they go to that officer, they call him in, or the IA, depending on the allegation, and the further officer and the sergeant, they're trying to prove that allegation instead of being like, hey, what happened? And what pisses me off, and anybody else, when you go to IA or get to for a supervisor to grilling you, if they're not, the officer gets the benefit of the doubt, and there's two sides to every story. Give the officer just as much courtesy as you did to the person calling and making the complaint. But 9 out of 10 complaints, they were bullshit. And I think that's about the ratio of the ones that go to IA. So here in Charlotte, I investigate certain complaints, depending on severity. A supervisor, if I get a complaint that an officer used something maybe criminal, they did something criminal, then I'd have to call internal affairs and they would investigate it. So, but they're thorough here in Charlotte for sure.
Yeah. So I think thorough is a nice word, a nice way to put it. But and and to wrap everything up in a bow, we want people to know out there, there are good cops out there that's trying to clean up the ranks as well, because we don't want to be generalized, just like we don't want anybody else to be generalized. But I also want officers to know that you can talk to each other and you can confront each other, and before you go running to supervisors, and things of that nature. Now, like I said, if it's flat out you're on a coke bus and you see another officer put a stack of money in their pocket, there's nothing to talk
Oh,
about.
yeah.
Like, there's nothing to be like, hey man, what you thinking here? Like, no, there's no, you're done. Like, no, no, we're going to handle this. But if it's a, damn man, Blue been at the 7-Eleven for 30 minutes, let me go tell Sarge, that shit, that has to stop. That's just stupid, and that's just you being that's just you honestly being a coward and afraid to confront another officer. Or if you don't want to confront that officer, guess what you have on each shift? You have a senior officer. Hey, can you meet me somewhere? Hey, so and so is always shagging calls, and I we got a couple other guys that don't like it. Can you say something? That's when that senior officer lets it be known. That's how you do that. You don't, like, I'm from the military. Like, it's such thing as called the chain of command. Like, you don't skip the chain of command. That's just bad for morale. That's bad for business. But like, again, like I said, and for everybody out there, I want you to be clear. If it's something that's flat out criminal, yes, you go to your supervisor. Yes, you do that. But if it's something that's like a, I don't like the way you curse on calls, or I don't like how it takes you a long time to log on, shit like that, you confront that officer, or you use your senior officer for advisement.
Yeah, and I'll tell officers too. They would complain that I took 12 calls a day, and so took six. Well, yeah, he or she had two or three report calls and this and the ADW, and you had noise complaints or something. It doesn't matter. And I'm like, and I would give my senior guys a lot of grace because they've been doing this shit. There are some guys on patrol that have been doing patrol for 15, 20 years on the same shift in the same district, and they would step up when they needed to. But I don't expect them to be jumping up and down, going to good calls. You're a rookie officer. Worry about yourself. Once you get into a certain level in the department and you earn respect, then you can start bitching or something. But to that officer, but uh, it's it's the newer officers. They're not doing anything. They're complaining. They're bitching. They're tattletelling. I'm like, okay, that's fine. This officer's been on for 20 years. I don't expect he or she to to be taking just as many calls as you. You got to earn your rite of passage.
And you just brought up a good point, and it's going to coincide with this question from Ed. Is this taught at the academy, the chain of command for officers that handle inter-office division conflicts? Yes, it is. And the academy prides itself on being a paramilitary organization, which means that you use the chain of command. In the academy, you have a student, what was it called? Step in Academy had a class president. You talk to him, and then he brings up any advisement, anything like that, to the commandant or to the leader. If it needs to go that route, it may can be kept in house. And Step, you brought up a good point that I want to talk about when you say the older officers and how the younger officers are coming in. The reason why the younger officers are coming in so entitled, because they're being told they're the best things since sliced bread. You're coming in at a terrible time. You're brave. You're this. You're that. You're that. And then what else are we seeing? And I'm just gonna call it flat out as I see it. You got these captains and these sergeants and these majors getting chummy with these rookie officers. Both genders. They either like the way they look in uniform, or they think that they're gonna be a strong superstar for them. And the lines are being blurred, not inappropriately, but far as a work relationship, they're thinking, hey, this is my pal. I could just go to his desk and talk to him. I could knock on his door and talk to the captain. No, when I came in,
Mm.
the captain talked to me first because that's just how it goes. You be seeing chumming it up and hamming it up in the captain's office. Guys don't like that because they're like, what are you doing in here? You just got here. Like, why are you so chummy with the captain? Why are you laughing so much with the captain?
You're right. And before I forget, let me bring up. So Asheville PD is, which is in the mountains of North Carolina, 2 hours, 2.5 hours from here. They have about 300 officers. They have had 86 officers quit within the last year. So, 33% of their officers, 35 almost, if they get two, I think they're like 288, uh, have quit the department, and they're citing lack of department support. And when a lot of it's how the community is up there, they're real liberal. They hate the police. It's like they call it San Francisco, the East Coast. But one of the main complaints is they're getting complained on, and the admin are taking the side of the frivolous complaint when there's no merit, just based on perception. And officers are going to put up for, especially there, they're not making they're making half of what officers make here. I know a sergeant there is making more than half less than half than what I make. I was probably making chief pay as a sergeant. So they're not paid, but we're not going to put up with that shit, man. And it's going to happen here. We're short on officers here. People are leaving. Every time I talk to somebody, they tell me about somebody else that left. People with experience and 20 plus years on are like, fuck it, I'm done.
They're cashing out early.
They're like, yeah, they're like, because they can't handle it. And it's not about the stuff going on, dealing with people trying to kill us or anything. It's the admin, and then being the nitpicking, micromanaging, and it's hard to keep up with. You got case follow-ups, you got property dispositions, you have just all training constantly, man. And then then they're yelling at you because supervisor yell, well, why don't you have traffic stops? Well, because I had 37 reports this month, and just training. I didn't care what an officer was, as long as the officer did something. If he liked to do DV reports, then I'm like, hey, he's my DV officer, and he would be my, build his resume, and he took DV calls. And guys would do recs. I say, okay, you're my rec officer. Traffic stop guys, I let them. So as long as somebody did something, I don't care if they made stops. If they took most reports out of Camden, come to me like, yeah, officer so and so didn't have any traffic stops this month. I was like, okay, well, he takes the most reports in the city. I mean, if the nun being raped on the bus, he's like, headquarters, give me that call. We're like, holy shit, he just took that call and volunteered for it. And so I was like, okay, cool. So this is how I'll handle that. I was like, okay.
First of all, this soft quota shit is bullshit.
It's bullshit.
Like, it's bullshit. I need at least 30 traffic stops. That's a fucking quota.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not giving you 30 fucking traffic stops.
No, and
I'm just not.
So I told the officer, pulled him, said, Camden's on my ass. He's upset because you didn't have a traffic stop. I told him, you take more reports than he does than anybody in the city. I said, do me a favor. I said, make 8 traffic stops. I don't care if you don't have to give him a ticket. I don't care what they're for. But after you make 8 traffic stops, go 42. You're done for the day. Right? I'll let you go. He's like, no, you get to go home. I don't care if it takes you an hour to make 8 traffic stops or 2 hours, 3 hours. If you're able to make 8 traffic stops, go home. So we got in one day, we got his traffic stops up 800%, and he got to go home early. And he did it like probably like 30 minutes. I was like, all right, take the rest of the day off. And so I got his traffic stops up 800%, rewarded him for doing something. And you got to take care of your people. We talk about that all the time.
You see how much bullshit that is?
Yeah, it's really,
it's so stupid. It's like, what's the purpose of stopping all these fucking cars if nothing's coming of it? And most of the headache is on traffic stops because you get the traffic stops and then people are cursing you out. You're getting upset.
Complaints.
yeah, you feel like your power is being tested because you're like, give me your ID, and they're like, I ain't giving you shit, and here we go. It's just it's just a level of like, let officers be officers, let officers work, let officers do what they do, and just call it a day. I know I just went off on a tangent about that, but that just kills me, and that's part of the things that all leads back into officers snitching because they're like, "Hey, so and so isn't taking any calls." Well, he got pressure from the sergeant to make traffic stops, so he's been doing traffic all fucking night. That's
Yep.
why he's not taking calls.
Yeah.
So, um, I hope. Listen, I hope everybody understands that when me and Step do episodes like this, that we're trying to make the solution. We're trying to come up with a solution, and we're trying to see it from as we try to see it from both sides as much as possible. But sometimes we're gonna either hone in on the community or we're gonna hone in on the officers. And this episode, it just happened to be we hone in on the officers because the reports and the comments we're getting from some officers from certain departments, they're like, it's getting out of hand with these newer officers coming in and thinking that sucking up and running to the supervisors are is the way to go for you to get a leg up, for you to get in people's good graces. No, that's just going to get you bouncing from shift to shift and wonder why nobody talks to you unless you're on a call with them. And let me tell you something, for 20 to 25 years, 30 years, that's miserable when nobody wants to fucking talk to you. I can just tell you that. Unless you're a loner and you don't care, but it's not the way to go about your police career.
Oh, and let's tell them what we're changing stuff up really soon. We did the photo shoot for our logo, and I think a lot of people missed it. I got a
Uh
couple.
yes, yes. Me and Steph this weekend we took pictures for the cover art to the podcast. We are going to rename the podcast because just to let you know, there's a whole bunch of behind the badges and beyond the badges, and me and Step want to separate that, and we're not going to give the name out yet. But we have a pretty cool name, and we think it's gonna get people talking. It's gonna get people wondering, and that's what we want because we want conversation. We want change. We're working with a fantastic podcast live stream content coach, Colleen Odegaard. Make sure you check her out. She's phenomenal. She's a veteran in the television and podcasting industry. She's done multiple TV shows. She's fantastic, and she's given us some great ideas. We want to thank her for her support. But yes, we're going to revamp this whole thing, and then when we launch this thing, it's going to be big. There's no doubt in me and Step's mind, and we want y'all to be there. And I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this again. When me and Step do something like this, we're not asking you to buy t-shirts, mugs, hats. That stuff is going to come later or whatever.
Yeah.
We just want your time. We want you to listen to the podcast, be here for the live stream, support it, share it, tell other departments, tell other police wives, tell medics, fires. We just want you to do that. Can you do that for us? Because we feel really good about this, and I get sick and tired of me and Step and others doing things like this, but yet somebody uh shaking their ass or cracking an egg on their face or putting rubber bands around a watermelon. True story. It's getting thousands and hundreds of thousands of views, and we're talking about stuff that absolutely matters and will come on your doorstep if you're not paying attention. And we're getting 20, 10, 15 downloads, and most of it's our friends, and they're not really into it. that part will piss me off, and I'm just gonna be honest about it. So please, when we do launch this thing, just make sure you support it. Make sure you're ready for it because it's gonna be awesome. And I want everybody to know that when me and Steph fire up the computer or we drop an episode, it's something in there that's going to help you going forward as the community and as first responders and anything else. Please,
And we're gonna
um,
get, we're gonna talk to some police officer wives, get their perspectives. We're gonna talk to maybe
police
some police
psychologists,
psychologists.
uh,
But yeah, focus a lot on mental health. We're gonna talk to
nutritionists.
yeah,
Um,
people that I've got some friends that were felons and went to prison and turned their life around, and they'll give their perception of police and what they had to do a lot of powerful stuff and real stuff. So not only their cops and their families relate to it, but people in the community. They want to know, hey, my house is getting broken into. Why does it take an officer 45 minutes to get here? Because there's nobody available. So
how can I prevent people from breaking into my house? How to uh, how to find signs that my child is possibly being assaulted or bullied or we're going to have all that stuff, but if we don't have the support, then the content is going to fall. It's going to fall on deaf ears. So we just need everybody's support and be ready. Thank you for joining us. Again, you can find me at Real Prince Blue on Twitter, TikTok, YouTube,
he's on
uh,
TikTok now. Just in case you didn't
Instagram.
get last.
Yes, I'm on TikTok now, and it's
Are you
it's
following me?
interesting. Yes, I did follow you. It's interesting. I can tell you that. Um, and
Did you
what
like
else
my
I was supposed
videos? I need some likes. Did you like them?
Yes. Yeah, every time you show up or Josh shows up, I like it. It could be y'all you could be combing your hair and I'll push the heart button.
That's not my
Me
page.
and
That's not my page.
nigga.
That's
uh,
I want to be hair to comb.
but
It's Woodie's.
yeah, it's fantastic. Thank everybody. Thanks to our lovely wives for supporting us and putting up with us because they know it's going to take a lot for us to get this off the ground. Possibly some road trips in the old Sprinter van. So we can't wait. Please, people, just be safe out there. Make sure you be when we drop this episode, just make sure you download it if you haven't heard it or share it. And thank you everybody for joining us. Be safe, have a good night, and we will see you next Wednesday, 8 o'clock again. Uh, See ya.